Living in this time where we have historic change hitting us every day. How many people lost sleep last night? Right? How many people had to have too much coffee this morning? For me, growing up in Montana, we have the only congressman that actually took time to create a commercial that shot drones out of the sky. So, we're used to this change. We don't like it sometimes, but it's real, right? The change that's hitting us is unprecedented. The impact that we're feeling every day is beyond what we thought we would experience yesterday. I grew up in a world where the Jetsons were the coolest thing. Things flying around in the sky, things that we could imagine. And yeah, I had a crush on Judy, right? I mean, she was the best in the world. But the reality is, I grew up that little kid, right? Thinking that everything was an opportunity. Everything was the future of where we could potentially go. Not many of us grew up in a world where we thought that nothing was an opportunity. Danilo found a way to drop opportunity and go create a future for himself. That's the world we live in. We live in a world where the largest taxi service has no cars. They're transforming the world for how we communicate. Somehow this online business has created an environment where CEOs will come pick you up at the airport and then take you to where they want to go because they want to talk to you. That's crazy. Getting the CEO to actually call us sometimes is tough, right? We also live in a world where Airbnb has 2 million unique site listings where you're renting out your house on a normalized basis. I'm a germaphobe. I don't want you sleeping in my bed, right? It scares me to death, let alone you looking at what I'm doing in my house or what may be in my, once again, from Montana, we have safes full of things that we don't want you to look at, right? That world that we're living in is something we never contemplated, where drones can go over and help people, even in avalanche situations, right? To find and use FLIR to better locate where people may be, because dorks like me are out in the backcountry doing snowmobiling. We also live in a world where the largest retailer in the world generates over $100 billion in revenue. They have over 500 million active customers, not just customers, but they don't own anything. They simply are reselling or creating the opportunity, and they're growing faster than anybody else. The world that we grew up in doesn't exist tomorrow. The first program, so when Danilo said he grew up writing on Apple II SE, I think is what he mentioned, I grew up writing code on Apple 5 years, 10 years, 15 years before on a TI 99. Apple wasn't even invented when we were writing in DOS, right? Crazy stuff that we're seeing, that rapid change every single moment that's happening. Facebook is the largest content provider, yet they don't own any content. Your content is their content, creating relationships that we didn't even think about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We live in a world where this network that is out there is driving so fast. Everybody's seen the hockey stick curve. Ken put it up on the chart. Our friends at Comcast, Mike talked about it. The reality is that's a lagging indicator of what's really going on in the industry. Ken also talked about the fact that the machines are actually what's driving a lot of the communication. Val talked about it at the very beginning. Those truckers and the trucks communicating back and forth. That's what's driving a lot of the network bandwidth that's going on. One of the most fascinating things when we look at what really is going on in the network is the machine-to-machine communications that Ken talked about. We got our report from McKinsey, so it shows, McKinsey always shows it a little bit higher than potentially maybe what other people do. But at 50 billion devices by 2020 connecting to each other, right? Closed circuit TVs, our friends at Vivint using the doorbell, using everything else to communicate. One of the scariest things when I was down at Vivint the other day was hearing that they actually have sensors for beds. I don't want to know why they have sensors for beds, but also some of the cool things that Joe talked about as far as drone activity. See, one of the things that first responders are so excited about is not only the smart city applications, but having those sensors for environmental, biological, radiological, first visibility site application stuff. having those machines to communicate to each other, having MAC address capability set to know where that person is located within a foot, has a big impact on where the future of technology is going. So the bandwidth that we see in the hockey stick is the lagging indicator. Anybody know what this chart is? This is the first machine-to-machine attack on the United States. About 2 months ago, a little tiny company called Jingmao had a backdoor in all of their closed-circuit TV applications, their DVRs, their printers, and speakers that allowed people to go in and attack the network. Here's the reaction to the business. Little tiny companies like Twitter, Netflix, Hulu, Reddit, PayPal, all shut down because of a backdoor in a connected device. Scary stuff. 2 years ago, we didn't think this was even a possibility, to have people go in and attack through a back door on some software that wasn't protected, allowing those things to happen. They were using bandwidth between 1 and 30 meg, which 5 years ago was a lot of bandwidth, right? Now with gigabit networks, we don't even notice it. As a user at home, if we have 100 meg, 200 meg, 500 meg, we don't even notice that our network might be draining 10 meg, 5 meg, 3 meg, 2 meg, whatever it may be. And 5 years ago, we didn't even think about a world where my speakers were connected to my network, which was then connected to my TV, that's a smart TV, that has its own bandwidth allocations, that's connected to my DirecTV or my X1 or my Prism TV or whatever else it may be. That world is reality today. It impacted all internet traffic on that whole map. Big, big deal. Machine to machine. They didn't have to go out and create computers, because the hijacking that I used to do as a little tiny hacker, right, was go to someone's computer or write a code program that said, find me, follow me, I want to track where you are, I want to know where you're at. And yes, I got a visit from someone with black suits and said, please don't do this anymore, as a little kid, and my dad banned me from touching a computer. That day is gone. The day where I don't have to do anything other than create a program that goes and searches for other programs, that hunts for open doors, is the world we live in. This is a live, I had to record it, so it's not live right now. This is a live network attack map. You can go to the website if you want, norse.attack.com. These are live attacks happening. Just last week, there was 146,000 DDoS attacks on the US network. That's a 76% increase from the quarter before. This is real, what's happening. Want to look at it yourself? Go look at your own data. This stuff is where our future is. Managing and mitigating risk, right? But once again, keep in mind, I'm that optimist, right, kid? I'm the Jetsons. The reality is we have to manage this stuff. It's no different than having to figure out anything else. No different than when Ford had to figure out how do we make sure manufacturing is better, because he was threatened with, you can't make cars like that anymore, right? This map is live usage. Once again, it's not live because this is a PC. Live usage of the internet never slowing down. Sounds obvious, right? But as you look at those hotspots, as they go yellow to red, and I'm colorblind, so I trust someone who told me that they're going yellow and red. I hope they are. If they're not, maybe you're laughing because they're not. But the reality is those yellow and red, those are individual devices that are attacking the network. They're the ones that represent that. And as you watch that stuff cross the screen, you can see the yellow and red that's causing threat and impact, and the network attacks don't slow down. Because the world that we live in isn't just connected by the local network, right? Of which we're very proud to be one of the leading gigabit providers in the United States. We have over 100,000 homes in Utah that have gig to the home. We're deploying new technologies like copper vectoring that allows 200 meg over existing copper lines. And we're the largest deployer of G.fast, which, are you ready for it? Is gig over copper. 3 years ago, no one thought that was possible. It was a science experiment. Now it's real. The bandwidth is not the limiting factor that we have today. Our ideation and our thinking and where we're going with it is our limiting factor. The hard part is the PCs and the Macs, not to be a PCist or anything else, the tools are not really what's driving innovation. The bandwidth and the open doors that are being created are creating a computing world that these devices are slower than the network now. So gig via CenturyLink or Google Fiber or Comcast is driving a world that, Ken, you mentioned this earlier. Here, let me get to it. This is an app that we have as a company called MD Live. I used it yesterday. I can go in and select a doctor, and in 2 minutes, there's an SLA, service level agreement, that doctor will call me back and say, what can I do to help you? And they live FaceTime chat with me, and I can say, oh, my daughter's throat's sore, and they literally, okay, put the FaceTime up closer so I can see it. And then before she gets off the phone, which was a female doctor, she'd already sent a prescription to my local Walgreens. And I walk down and pick it up. That world is now. And the impacts to that world, because I'm doing it over a wireless network, and what I'm doing is all known. And in this room right now, there's 10 unsecured networks, right? Things that we have to think about, things that we have to navigate. Big issues, right? Anybody know these guys? Billy Beane, the Oakland Athletics, they face the same kind of threat that we're facing right now. They don't have all the cash they need to go get the players that they need, yet they had to figure out what they could do with what they have to get where they want to go, right? I'm a big historian, right? You got to do what you can with what you've got to get where you want to go, right? Jefferson quote. Then there's this guy named Paul Podesta, very intelligent data mining guy, that said, you know what, let me figure out, do I need to have that big all-star player that's so great, or can I have the person who just simply gets base hits? They just know how to get on the base. They transformed baseball, they transformed basketball. If you work with the Utah Jazz, we do a lot with our friends at the Utah Jazz. They have a whole team of data mining people that do nothing but look at how does that person push off when they're recruiting. If their ankle is off 2 degrees, they know that person's more prone to have sprained ankles, so therefore they probably aren't going to pay as much to have that person on their team. Crazy stuff. That if we use the opportunity and the impact that's in front of us, it changes everything, right? Some of the settings for the Internet of Things, the why, right? Is that risk that I've talked about for the last couple minutes worth the reward? Those numbers on the wall tell you it is. Because you and I, that same world that I grew up in, that I want the Jetsons, I want my coffee made the way I want it, or I want to be able to drive by Starbucks and they already have my coffee made, which Starbucks is working on right now. They know you drive by that Starbucks, they know your GPS tagging, they know when you're getting by there, they know what you ordered last time, and you can simply have a pop-up on your screen that says, yeah, go ahead and order it. That world of convenience is the world we live in. However, and I'm not a political guy, that world we also have to watch out for, because things like Facebook and things like all of the other social media apps tend to cater to what we want, not all of the information that's out there. And so we have to make sure we're discerning too, right? Because that's what matters in the long term. We've got to figure out what's good, what's bad, just like my dad used to teach me. No, I heard that a lot as a kid. Wasn't spanked enough, I'll tell you. This is not Oprah. But the reality is data mining and how we manage that data. I was talking with a gentleman from Eagle Mountain. What are the opportunities that we face in the future? Data mining applications, the metadata, the data that fuels all these applications and the content between those applications. Wow. I used to work for a company that we sold to Sony. We sold that company 10 years ago purely because of our ability to ingest or put metadata into video files so that they could monetize what actually was going on with their content. So they wanted to know when Jennifer Aniston was in wearing a blue sweater. You could go in and search Jennifer Aniston blue sweater and it'd pull up every scene that happened. And the reason they wanted to do that was because they could generate more profit because of that, right? This happens to be an example of a company, energy company. They are not using 99% of the data that's in front of them. They could generate more profit. They could make more safety decisions that impact Joe's world and our world, right? to be at better opportunities. And those opportunities create other opportunities to generate businesses that potentially could be located in Eagle Mountain, right? Could be located anywhere. This, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it. Several people asked me about it. We are going through a little acquisition right now of a company called Level 3 Communications. That's the national network map. Big, huge growth opportunity for us as a company, which is no different than anybody in telecommunications, right? Comcast is going through the acquisition with NBC. It's continuing everywhere. AT&T is doing a little acquisition with the cable company as well. Yeah, just small stuff, right? And so I don't mean to belittle those, so please don't take that way. But rapid transformation, and we can be fearful of it, or we can understand it's a huge opportunity. And that opportunity is being driven by local people driving those opportunities. Anybody remember the game Flappy Birds? Right? $50,000 a day is what the creator of Flappy Birds was driving. A developer in Vietnam created a product that sold advertising interstitially, and he was generating $50,000 a day. He got so much cash from it, he shut it down, right? $20 million annually, $50,000 a day. My dad was a math professor, I do the math quickly. Scary stuff, but huge opportunities. Back to the opportunity chart on the Internet of Things. Massive scale opportunities that we face. In Utah with the Silicon Slopes, we have an unprecedented opportunity to be the global leader of telecommunications because of the investment that was mentioned earlier. That investment matters, right? Where we're going as a community, where we're going as a city, and where we're going as a state. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it, guys.